Hello, boys and girls, and welcome back to another virtual world of math here at Bethune. We are on Math Week 6, Day 1, Part 2. I am Mrs. Levine, and I will be conducting all the math lessons for the math teachers, Mrs. E and Mrs. Anderson. We're going to be doing or finishing up Part 2, I Ready Lesson 26, Measuring Length and Plot Data on Line Plots. Your standard for today, if I can get it down, generate measurement data by measuring lengths using rulers marked with halves and fourths of an inch. Show the data by making a line plot where the horizontal scale is marked off in appropriate units and whole numbers, halves, and quarters. Your learning goal and target today is use a ruler to measure whole, half, and quarter inches. Record measurement data using whole, half, and quarter inches. Make a line plot with horizontal scale marked off in whole numbers, half, or quarter units. You also had vocabulary words in your first lesson, and you're more than welcome to come back to these and jot them down or study them as much as needed in order to understand this lesson more clear. Okay? So there they are. They are here for you. Now let's jump over into this lesson here, and we're going to read the problem below. Then we're going to explore different ways of measuring the length. So Brian is measuring the length of 6 earthworms, and the earthworms he collected are shown. How can he find the length of each earthworm? So you have A, certain length, B, there's a certain length, C, there's a certain length, D, there's a certain length, E, there's a certain length, and F, there's a certain length. If you notice, they all have different lengths. So we are going to figure out how, didn't want to make that big or small. Okay, we're going to figure out how. So if you were asking yourself or answering that question out loud, hopefully you guys said with a ruler. Okay, so let's picture it. You can use an inch ruler to help you understand how to measure length. This ruler shows half of an inch mark here. And you can measure to the nearest half inch. So letter A, and I took it upon myself to kind of draw this. I hope it's clear. I don't know if it's going to show up, but I kind of drew it there. And you also have it here in your book as well with the ruler underneath. So I took an inch ruler and I drew my ruler from starting at my 0 point, and you see that here as well on the ruler that's there on your paper. And you also have me going from 0 to 1 inch, and this is supposed to be my inch ruler. Okay, the next section is another inch, and that goes to the 2 mark. Now between each one of these inches, boys and girls, I have a half mark, so that will be half of an inch. So for the next half mark, if this was a whole inch, 1, and then I would state 1.5 inches. So my next point will be 2 inches. So now I have 1 inch and 2 inch. And if I were to keep going, then I would be at where? 2.5 inches. So if you are reading these, you're reading this in whole and then half at a half point. So on your page here, we have letter A. If we line that up with the ruler down below, it stops at half. Passes up that, here's a half, passes up, goes to that 1, passes up that 1, stops here. So it should be at 1.5. Letter B starts at that 0 mark, passes up the 1 inch, passes up another half. So it's 1.5 so far. Letter B passes to 2 inches. Wow, check it out. And then it passes up the 2 inch mark and it stops at the 2.5 inch mark. And then we have letter C, half, check it out, goes to the 1 inch, passes up the 1 inch and goes to 1.5. And the earthworm is 2 inches long. It measures out to be 2 inches long. Okay, so we have our half marks, and we know that this is 2 parts in between a half. Okay, so let's jump down here and see what we're talking about with these set of of earthworms, D and E and F. This ruler shows 1/4 of an inch marks, and you can measure to the nearest 4th inch. Now keep in mind that this measurement, or this inch, is broken down into 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 1/4. This is a 1/4. This is half. This is 3/4, and this is an inch. Okay. So here it is again. 1 and 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, a total of 2. 2 1/4. Keep going. 2 1/2, 2 3/4, and 3 inches. All right. So we know that the letter D, earthworms, passes up that half mark, passes up that 1 inch mark, keeps going, passes up that 1 1/2 inch mark, and it lands not necessarily on the 2, but right before it. So that's 1, 2, 3. So it's 1 3/4. Because remember, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. Okay. So that D is 1 3/4. That's the nearest fourths. So let's jump to letter E. Letter E starts at 0, passes up that half mark, passes up the inch mark, but it stops just right after the inch mark. So we know that that first part, remember, has 4 parts. So the first part is a 1/4. So it's 1 1/4, right? Here it is, F. F is a little longer. Okay. Half mark here. So we have a 1/4, half, 3/4, and a whole inch. 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, to 2 inch mark. It's still long. 2 1/4, and 2 1/2. Isn't that cool? So we're going to be able to answer some questions after doing that. Didn't want to go up that far. So you can use words to describe how to measure the length as well. So if we model it, line up the left of the earthworm, and that's here if we're looking at my little drawing. So you have the left of the earthworm with your 0. Line up the left end of the earthworm with 0 on the ruler. Here's your ruler. Look at the other end of the earthworm. Here is where this letter A stops at the half mark. Okay. Find the mark on the ruler that is closest to the other end of the earthworm. You can measure to the nearest inch, half an inch, or the 4th. Okay. I want you to connect it, and then we're going to plug in this little chart down below here. Number 2, it says, well, let's read the directions. It says, now you will measure to solve the problems from the previous page. So all of that information that we pretty much read and observed, complete the sentence to describe how you begin to measure earthworm A. I line up the left end of the earthworm with 0 on the ruler. So I line up the left end of the earthworm with blank on the ruler. So number 3, picture it. Is earthworm A longer than 1 inch or shorter than 1 inch? So if we looked here, then go back. So is earthworm A longer than 1 inch? And here's your 1 inch mark. Or is it shorter? And earthworm actually stops here. So on that line, you should definitely be putting longer. Okay. Number 4, the mark on the ruler that is closest to the other end of the earthworm A is, so let's look at the end of earthworm A, and the mark is at 1.5, is it closer to 1 inch, or would earthworm A be closer to 2 inches? So the mark on the ruler that is closest to the other end of the earthworm A is it closer to 1.5? Ding, 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 ding. So that's where it would stop. Okay. So you should have on number 4, 1.5 inches. Earthworm A is 1.5 inches long. Use the ruler and picture it to measure earthworms B, C, D, E, F. Write your measurements on the table below. So here we go. Now, the next set of, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back up real quick because I want to make sure I talk to you about the 4th. Well, we did. I'm sorry. So D and E, and remember when you're plugging that, remember that each one of these, each one of the inches are separated by 4 parts now. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the inches on this first ruler were separated into 2 parts. Okay? So you should be able to fill that in. And letter A, we pretty much just plug those in above. But I want to jump in before we run out of time. Explain how you found the length of earthworm F. So we're going to jump to letter F. And we know that letter F, earthworm, if I pull this up and you guys are looking at your chart, your own page as well. But letter F went from the 0 all the way here. So that's your 2-inch mark, 2 1/4. I should have my thumbtacks so I could plug this up here. And lucky me, I don't see them. Okay, so if this one here stopped at 2 1/2, the 2.5 mark. So explain how you found that. I would say I lined up the left end of the earthworm with 0, right? What we said on the ruler, and I found the mark on the ruler that is closest to the other end of this earthworm. That would be acceptable. Okay? Try it for yourself. Write it out there. Try it out. Guys, I want you to finish up and finish up the rest of those answers for yourself. And hopefully you guys learn a little something today. And we will come back and visit you. Make sure you are completing these exit tickets. It will be at the end of the second half of this video. All right, boys and girls, that concludes this lesson on measuring, plotting, all that good stuff. Have fun. I'll see you again.